Well, hello, and we're back. Welcome, everybody. Today, I'm doing a video that has been very widely requested of me. I have to say, straight off the bat, if you've been following the streams very closely, if you've been watching a lot of the stuff, there isn't going to be too much new here. But I wanted to put this video out, number one, because it was something that I said I was interested in doing. But number two, because I've had a huge number of people asking me to make it, which is really quite interesting, really quite cool. Today, I want to give you the updates to my Pure Energy Surge or Mesmer group. That's kind of a gimmick comp. Now, for those totally out of the loop, a few months back now, I did a video showing off just something I was playing around with using mercenaries in Guild Wars 1 to have tons and tons of Mesmers and just see what I could pull off with it. It was just a gimmicky idea, and let me stress that very carefully here. This is not a perfect, awesome, the very best Guild Wars 1 comp that will clear everything for you. This is barely more than a normal mode clearing group, and I want to be very explicit about that fact. A lot of people saw this comp that I'm about to talk about, saw this build, and they thought, oh, this is the absolute best thing. It would be better if you made changes. It would be better if you went to actual places to find Guild Wars 1 builds and made changes. For example, one of these Mesmers I've got, just for the fun and flavor of it, could totally be swapped for a soul-twisting Ritualist and make the comp way better. Let me just be 100% clear about that. That said, though, I do think this is a really fun group. You guys have seen it in action, and it's quite amazing to me how many people have asked me for the updates, and how many people have asked me for the optimizations I made, and how many people have asked me to clear up some other little things that I never got to in the previous video. So let's do it. Let's bust it out. I want to talk to you about the new and improved Energy Surge Insane group, and hopefully the footage that you're watching right now will be ample demonstration to you that this thing is ridiculously powerful and very fun. It will easily, if you're thinking of going back to Guild Wars 1 to get your first clear through and you don't mind buying mercenaries or doing something fun, this will easily get you through pretty much all the normal mode stuff in the game. I can't think of anything that you wouldn't be able to get through in normal mode, and it will even do a lot of the hard mode stuff too. Alright, so let's talk about it. What was the main idea? The main idea is that we have as many Mesmers as possible. I'm a Mesmer. All of my heroes are Mesmers except a single Necromancer who's our healer. It's an insanely glassy, very offensive group that spams this ability here, Energy Surge. So Energy Surge, all the heroes will target whoever you're targeting. This is their elite. They will cast this. It's low energy, incredibly low cooldown, combined with fast casting, which a lot of them have. It drains your target of their energy so they can do little more than auto attack, and then it does massive AoE damage off the heels of it, and everyone's running that. So because it's so spammable, because it's so hero friendly, and it's a huge armor ignoring AoE, it allows you to clear content really quickly. So everybody's running Energy Surge. And then, beyond that, we're running a lot of the other insanely OP Mesmer stuff on top. So that's generally the gist of the build. Last I showed it to you, it was more of a conceptual thing and just something I was messing about with a bit. Well, shortly after I did that video, I did make a lot of other optimizations, and I want to show you guys the whole thing in full. And there'll even be build templates in the description for this one as well, if you want to copy them in. I'm not saying that this still couldn't be further optimized. I'm pretty sure it could. But this is what I landed on before putting it to bed a little while ago, alright? So, a few changes. The first and most important change that wasn't discussed in the previous video is the importance of 40-40 sets. So people came out and explained this to me straight away. So this is the idea of having on everyone a wand and focus, and the wand has a 20% chance to halve the casting time of their domination spells, which is what Energy Surge and all this stuff is. And it also has a 20% chance to halve the recharge of domination spells. That's on the wand, which means 20-20, and then the focus is the same. A further 20% chance to halve the casting time of domination spells, and a further 20% chance to halve the recharge on domination spells. So everyone has that. So everyone has now a 40% chance to proc those two things. Everyone does. And I'll tell you, the second that I did this, the second that I got my 40-40 sets, all for domination magic, the utility, the damage, and the speed at which this was clearing stuff went through the roof. I still don't actually have it on my main. I'm still using the Cowlin domination stuff, which probably isn't the best thing I could be doing. But certainly for all the heroes, get yourself geared up with that if you guys can. Now, the easiest way to get 40-40 sets is you can get it from the Vasberg Armory over on the Kurzik side, or I believe it's the Leviathan Pits. Either that or it's Seafarer's Rest over here on the Luxon side. You just speak to the weaponsmith that is in this outpost God, I miss this style of vendor rewards and things from the first game. But yeah, Telemon over here. Telemon will sell you these things and you can craft them up. It will cost some materials. None of it was particularly expensive, but to be honest with you, I've lost all perspective for how expensive things are in Guild Wars 1 these days, because whenever I need something, I just sell some of my Ecto that I've got left in stock. So, but this is all 40-40 stuff. Here you go. You can see the inscribed chakram that my guys are all running right here. So 40-40s are really powerful. Just imagine all of these spells are 40, and all of these characters, so many of them, recharging that much faster and even being executed that much faster on top of the benefits of their fast casting too. So that was big change number 1. Let's look at the only non-Mesmer that I was running with the build and talk about the other big change that I made here. So the way that this Ritualist, this Necromancer, sorry, works is Necros are pretty OP in PvE because their primary attribute, Soul Reaping, means whenever something dies, they get energy. So most heroes are really bad with energy management. If you're using a Necromancer hero, they're not bad with energy management because they can just spam whatever they like, and as long as things are dying, they keep that energy rolling through. And so you abuse this and make Necromancers with their secondaries the main thing all the time. So this is the Necromancer, the Ritualist healer. A lot of these things you saw in the previous video, Spirit Light, very potent heal. We've got a spirit to stop that from making us sacrifice health. We have the Weapon of Warding. Previously, I believe I was using Jinrei's weapon, or maybe it was the Weapon of Remedy, as the elite, and this was my standard setup. However, this is a very aggressive comp. This is a very aggressive group, and Soul Reaping not only gives you this insane bypass for energy management as a mechanic, but it also gives you access to some powerful skills itself, including Icy Veins. I think it was Icy Veins that I was using. Yeah, Icy Veins. Icy Veins, 10 energy, 5-second cooldown. It's a Hex. Target foe gets hit for 90 cold damage. So it's cold damage, it's not armor ignoring. This is not an energy surge. But for then, if it dies, that enemy explodes, basically, and deals 110 cold damage to everyone around it. And this is only on a 5-second cooldown. So this just ties into the aggressive nature of the group. This is a healer that will throw the occasional Hex out, and this will serve as an insane spike. This Hex helps to serve the purpose of Unnatural Signet for all of your other Mesmers. So Livia here will Hex the target, and then all of these guys will be proccing AoE damage off of the Unnatural Signet if, you know, I've missed my personal Hex or whatever. So yeah, I swapped to this. Again, it's just, in normal mode, I really see no need to go with the weapon, and this just, again, speeds you up all that much quicker. The groups will explode that much faster, and it's kind of that old adage of a very strong offense means a very strong defense. So that was a nice little change that I made. Of course, accompanying that change, you do need to make sure that your hero is not set to away, which you'd usually have a healer, not set to guard, but actually I have Livia set to fight. Now, the one interesting thing about this comp that I don't think I talked about before is everyone is ranged, okay? Everyone is ranged. So this has a perk and it has a downside. The perk is the fact you can set all of these guys to fight and they'll be very aggressive, and Livia will very aggressively seek to use Icy Veins. But because she's not melee, she's not going to run miles out at enemies and get herself caught alone. She's generally going to be packed with a group because everyone is that same range. Everyone's executing skills from that same general distance. If you did this, for example, on a warrior hero, there's a chance he'd run off and get himself screwed, and people would instead recommend you have him guard. But this means you're pushing out, again, the quicker clears because the AI will use Icy Veins that much more aggressively. So that's the perk. Everybody can be on attack without it being too punishing. The downside is AoEs will shred you without some sincere attention paid in specific scenarios to flagging at least the first 3 guys of your group to sort of spread out a little bit more. But so that's why I have her on aggressive. It means that when an encounter starts, she's very likely to proc that Icy Veins somewhere very, very, very quickly, okay? So so that was a change I don't believe you saw on the previous group. And then we've got other things in terms of optimizations. So we'll look at my build last, I guess. What I have are 2 of our Mesmers, specifically, are running secondary Paragon. And as secondary Paragons, they're very high command. So Norgu here is our main one. He's got 10 command. Gwen follows suit with 8 command. Specifically, Norgu is our 10 command because he is the only person in the group to be running We Shall Return. Now, I've just made some changes in a very brief edit there because I realized some of these builds were slightly wrong. But he is our main res in the middle of fights. He will pop this very quickly. He will have the energy for this. And you want a lot of command to make sure that people are getting up with a reasonable amount of health and a reasonable amount of energy. So on top of this, I've also put 2 other Paragon skills that really do benefit a lot from high command investment. That being Never Surrender, which goes all the way to +4 health regeneration, while none of the other heroes could proc it that high. And Fallback, which of course lasts a little bit longer. Which is the main thing that you're going for there. So the 2 big commanders there, and then the other person bouncing fallback is Gwen. Between the 2 of them, these guys can maintain very heavy fallback uptime on you. And then Gwen, as our second high command Paragon, she's running Stand Your Ground, which triggers for 13 seconds. So the idea here, guys, is basically every single one of these Mesmer heroes, the left 4 skills that they are executing, these skills are going to be 95% of what that hero executes because of the way the AI works, because of the speed of the cooldowns of these abilities. They're all insanely low. 15 seconds is the highest length cooldown, and fast casting reduces that even further, okay? So these heroes, because of the way the AI works, they're going to be permanently locked up casting these skills again and again and again. So you have to be very careful for the other 4 skills, the other half of their build. You have to be very careful about what you're actually putting in those slots, because quite often those abilities will not be executed. So there have been a great variety of skills that I've played around with that I've thought, hey, this could be kind of strong. Stuff like, for example, Chaos Storm. So another really fun idea that I was toying with, look, we've got all these domination Mesmers. Wouldn't it be amazing to just see tons of Chaos Storms getting dropped down all over the place? So, you know, I would do like this. I'd drop Chaos Storm onto their bar, but Chaos Storm would never be cast. Seriously, it would never be cast. The hero would always prioritize the Interrupt, or it would prioritize the Energy-less spell, or it would prioritize the Elite or the Hex. They would never get to casting Chaos Storm, and this is true for a great many skills and spells in the game. So what you have to do, or what I realized with the rest of these skills, is they have to be high utility options, or they have to be instant activation things that the hero isn't going to have any hang-ups about casting. And that is generally what has led me to what you see I'm running now. It's because these 4 skills get so much uptime, and they spend so long casting these, especially considering, again, that everyone's running 40-40 sets now. So, that's why Paragon is so strong as a secondary. These are all shouts. These shouts activate instantly. Even though Norgu is locked up casting these 4 skills all the time, which are incredibly, insanely overpowered. If someone dies, he can easily cast We Shall Return as long as he has the energy, because it doesn't interrupt any of his other actions. Same with Never Surrender. Same with Fallback. And then that is also why, as I'm sure you've all noticed, I'm running this skill here on pretty much every single one of the Mesmers. I'm running Hex Breaker. So what is Hex Breaker? Hex Breaker is a domination stance. It's got the art for a mantra. It's not actually a mantra. Well, it is a stance, so I guess it's pretty similar. But what this is, it's incredibly long duration, all right? It's instant activation as a stance. They didn't have stances on them anyway. And what it means is the next time they get targeted by a hex, they are instead immune to it. So this is very defensive in nature. Let's go back to Norgu here. Very defensive in nature. And then it splashes damage out onto the caster. So it's a little bit of damage, but what you'll notice through having Hex Break on this build, which I'm a big fan of now, you'll look at all of my heroes, no matter what they are doing, they will maintain Hex Break on themselves. And it's a lot of fun. Basically, you can look at these slots in my party as Hex immune. Because this is on such a low cooldown, they're all immune to the first Hex that they would be hit by. Now, let's say, for example, that Obsidian Twister gets targeted by a Hex. Well, it's already off cooldown. Because it lasts 85 seconds. And it cools down in a ridiculously short period of time. So, Obsidian Twister will get hit by a Hex. The enemy's Hex will not go through, and that could be a powerful potent elite, for example, something like, I don't know, Livia's Icy Veins, okay, coming in at us. And then they're immediately immune to the next one as well, because they'll repop Hex Breaker. And then it cools down so fast that in those long-term fights, This basically alleviates a lot of pressure. This stops a lot of that big damage from those hexes coming in. And again, it's not because Hex Breaker is the best way to mitigate hexes. It's because this stops, this is actually something the AI will use very comfortably. There is a space for a stance on these characters, and I've had a lot of fun running this. So that's one of the big things that I ended up using. And prioritizing instant activation or high utility things is the next thing. So let's continue going along. You'll see here that Gwen is actually running Shatter Hex instead of We Shall Return, of course. This is for those very, very hex-heavy moments where also, obviously, you get a bit of splash damage coming out of it. And those are our two Paragon-heavy guys. Moving on. And if you take a look at the rune, you'll notice I've probably ruined these guys now. They're all out the ass domination magic. Again, it's all very glassy. There's really very little sustain here, but it will push through normal mode stuff very quickly. Moving into the other guys. This is our last Paragon. So can't touch this. Excellent skill. Doesn't need high command investment. She only has 6 command. But what this is this is a shout that will permanently be on your team. It's a 20-second cooldown, a duration of 20 seconds, only 5 energy, and it's just going to cause touch skills to fail. You won't always know if touch skills are coming up against you. If you know for sure that there are no touch skills in the map you're about to deal with, then maybe take this skill off. But generally speaking, I like to have it there. It's something that procs a permanent shout on your group, and that can even trigger some insignias if you want to go kind of wild with that as well. And then lastly, you see another stand your ground here. So this is 11 seconds of stand your ground. And you'll see Gwen here has 13 seconds of stand your ground. Between these two characters, Etheric Twister and Gwen, we have permanent stand your ground uptime as well, which is even more armor when we're not moving. And guess what? This is a pure ranged comp where people won't be moving very much anyway. So these are nice little shouts you can bounce around. Again, more instant activation stuff. And here you see I got an additional power spike, which again, because it's an interrupt, if the cries of frustration have been failing and the mistrusts have been failing and there's still more things, spells specifically to interrupt, this can pierce through that, and that's why I favor that. Moving on, we're taking another slot here with another interrupt, this time the Signet of Disruption. Our final command, Paragon, is running Never Give Up. I actually really like this. This 5 energy pulse out to everyone who's getting low on health is huge. If you're going to improve on this comp even more, maybe have a look at adding more Never Give Ups. You could maybe even substitute this Stand Your Ground for it if you really, really are struggling. But again, utility. So we've got Shatter Enchantment here. Breaking those enchantments, obviously very important. And even the comp could maybe use a little bit more of that. For the final two, we are actually secondary Ritualist. And they're only 3 investment, but what this is for resurrection potential. If Norgu dies, then you've got no more res, and obviously that's a terrible, terrible comp. That's a really bad group. So actually, I've just taken the opportunity here with these last two. They are secondary Ritualist. You could run Death Pact Signet if you like, or you could run Flesh of My Flesh, or hell, you could do anything else. You can maybe even make one of these Monk if you want to run Rebirth. That's totally up to you. But this just rounds out the group a little bit more. Largely, it is not a rounded out group. It is an incredibly glassy, silly novelty group, but that is sort of the way that I've ended up working that. Looking at my skills now, I already talked in the previous video about a lot of the synergies here. So every one of these Mesmers is triggering Unnatural Signet, and Unnatural Signet becomes AoE as soon as there's a Hex on a foe, and all of the heroes will be targeting my target, and I will make sure there is a Hex on my target with Mind Rack here. So I tend to go Mind Rack straight into a Cry of Pain or something, and usually that mob will get spiked out. But what this does is this enables a lot of the other Unnatural Signets. Livia, you'll notice if I have her up, she will be spamming Icy Veins. And that's another important thing to note about Icy Veins, by the way. If you look at the way I'm clearing this map right now in normal mode, or any mission even, we are so aggressive. I mean, this is a pretty bad example because a lot of these enemies are preoccupied. But Livia has nothing to do anyway in a lot of these situations. A lot of their initial attacks are going to be getting interrupted. Eventually, they're going to be getting energy denied. She's filled with healing things, but nothing. She's got nothing to heal except these random mobs, the allied mobs that are around here. So she will always be empty at the start, which is why it's good to have her on attack, because she'll open with the Icy Veins. Why would her AI have her do anything else? See that? I didn't trigger that. She did the Icy Veins herself. And she even went for a second one, and people aren't even getting that low. So Icy Veins on her is just so powerful. And it's not even something we necessarily have to spec for, really, because we were taking Soul Reaping anyway. You see? So now, obviously, I've been aggressed a little bit, and she's focusing on the healing, even though she's set to fight and be very aggressive. So we have that. Also, you may not have seen this on the previous run, or the previous video I did, but tryptophan signets. This is incredibly powerful. This is a signet that applies a debuff. So this will go through condition removal. This will go through hex removal. This can proc through things like Spell Breaker on enemies. And what this does is massively slows your foes down. This is excellent even for when you do take this into hard mode, and it will clear a lot of hard mode content. Look at how quickly we spiked that warrior boss out. It's ridiculous. But even what this allows you to do, basically, is get off the more interrupts. This is kind of like saying, okay, go back to normal mode. It removes, essentially, or it negates a lot of those buffs that hard mode mobs end up getting. Air of Superiority for very dense areas where there's lots of things dying. Instant refreshes for all of your cooldowns. Absolutely incredibly powerful. If you need even more energy management, Waste Not, Want Not's very strong. And of course, we've got Wastrel's Worry to round things out. This is your boss killer. If you ever see a boss like this guy, Jackie the Reaver, maybe have some stuff on him, but just spam Wastrel's Worry. Wastrel's Worry, the hexes will run out very fast. 100 damage, 100 damage, 100 damage, 100 damage, and you're just watching these enemies get absolutely slaughtered. The other big criticism that came from the last time I did a video on this was people said that too much energy surge was bad because it procs 0 damage. Because the enemy you target will end up hitting 0 energy, and then none of your heroes' energy surges are doing damage anymore. And so I want to address this criticism because it's really not a very good one. Now, the reason that this isn't a very good criticism is that, first of all, the only time you're ever really going to see zeros coming up, because the enemy has been drained completely, is if you target warriors or rangers. If you target anything else, they probably are not going to get energy drained that hard, that fast. So just make sure you don't target warriors or rangers right out of the bat, and you'll be fine. But even in the case where you have to target a warrior or ranger, or when you finally do see a 0 damage come up on energy surge, all you have to do is target swap. And the second you target swap, all of your heroes will generally target swap with you. You ping the new target, and then your damage goes way back up, and the AoE massive slaughterhouse begins again. And it really is that simple. You just swap. So these guys are warriors, for example. I started targeting one, and then we swap again. Not to mention the fact that a lot of the damage isn't purely from the energy surges. It's from other sources as well, like the Icy Veins, like the Unnatural Signet, like the Cry of Pain, and so on. And that's really all you have to do. You just have to target swap a little. Some people, upon seeing this criticism, did suggest to me that, so this guy's running Obsidian Flesh here, for example, and Unnatural Signet and Tryptophan Signet will be piercing through it. That's why he's tankier than most people. He's immune to spells. Some people did say, hey, why don't you run Aneurysm? So let's have a quick look at Aneurysm. Very interesting spell, and a spell I would love to run, believe me. I think it is, if you're ever looking for a flavor group, surely this group that drains the crap out of everything's energy, Aneurysm would be perfect. So let's read it. Target foe regains all of their energy, and for each point of energy that they gain in that way, they take 3 damage, and then all the adjacent enemies lose energy. So this seems perfect. Oh, you're seeing zeros? Well, cast Aneurysm, do a massive spike of damage, and now your energy surges can proc again. Unfortunately, though, this really isn't worth what it looks like. It will do mediocre damage, and worse, that extra thing, the fact that all enemies in the area lose their energy, that's bad. That means that you can't just swap now. It means that when you swap to your energy surges, you're even less likely to be able to get the damage. It's just not a good idea. You're re-enabling them to cast spells. It's better to just deny them, and all they can do is auto-attack, and you can maybe swap on an empathy or something for a little while, and you'll be sorted there with that. So, yeah, I really don't stand by Aneurysm. I did try using it, and I have played around with it a lot. All told, though, I think the strength of this group is how quickly it's clearing things, and Aneurysm is a bit too fiddly to play into that. And generally speaking, I just haven't found it working in the way that I would hope it would. So yeah, there you go, guys. That's the Energy Surge comp. That's how it's running. That's how you got to see me blow up Kunavang in hard mode in just a matter of seconds. You deny the bosses all of their ability to do anything. You blow things up. Again, it's not the greatest thing in Guild Wars 1. It's really not. Go to anywhere else and you'll find a better comp much cheaper that doesn't require a ton of mercenaries. But it's fun. And it's, for someone like me that really doesn't need to clear any of the content anymore, just running something flavorful is what's interesting to me. So please, do not let any of this stuff be deceptive. I'm not saying this is the best thing in the world. I'm not saying I've invented something new, because I really haven't. I'm just playing with an interesting thing. But a lot of you have asked me for updates on it. And there you go. There's the update. That's why I'm doing the video. And, oh boy, I still can't get enough of it. Maybe I'll do more of these in the future. I played with Psychic Instability, by the way, for a little while, which is like permanent knockdown for everything ever. And maybe you'll see I'll go for another flavor comp, like pure, I don't know, Ritualist, like have every single spirit in the game and see how that runs. That would be pretty wild, wouldn't it? Well, we'll see. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. That is the video, as promised, the update. And I'll see you shortly. Have a good one.